As many of you know, I come to this church from San Luis Obispo. That's where I lived before I came here down to LA. And as you may know, San Luis Obispo is a beautiful area with fabulous hills, and it's very cool. There's lots of cool things to do. The weather is very cool. And several summers of my time in San Luis Obispo, I would leave this beautiful, hilly, cool area and pack my suitcase with some overalls and some old tennis shoes and a couple of t-shirts that I didn't care if they got ripped or got paint on them, a hat to keep my hair and my sweat, the sun off my face, some bug spray, some sunscreen, and I would go somewhere in the country, oftentimes to the deep south, to be part of a mission team that would help rebuild an African-American church that had been destroyed by arson. Very sadly, this experience is still happening in our country, where black churches are being burned out of hatred and to humiliate. And our annual conference, when there was an organization around, it's since gone defunct, that helped organize groups to go down and rebuild black churches, black churches. Our conference would send teams, and we had a Central Coast team, and I would go down there, and leaving the nice, cool weather, all the cool things there were to do, I would be hammering and painting and insulating and sweeping and weeding and standing around looking for whatever I could do to help. And you got it, the worst heat and humidity. And people would sometimes, and oftentimes people would say, I can't go on this trip because I can't do that kind of work in that kind of heat and that humidity. I would die. You know, the weirdest thing I noticed about doing these mission trips in the Deep South, in the middle of the summer, horrible heat and humidity, when I would be on site, hammering, painting, insulating, sweeping, weeding, when I was doing all that stuff, really focused on helping the wonderful community that we were here to build for, helping the people that I was here working with, helping God, doing this out of the love of God. As I was doing all this work for other people, I never noticed how hot it was. I mean, I noticed it was hot, but it just didn't bother me. Now, the minute we were done working and I'd be standing at the van, waiting for the van to come to pick me up, suddenly it was like the veil was lifted, and oh my gosh, I was so hot. I was so bothered as I was thinking about what I was going to do once I got back to my nice air-conditioned church where I could relax. I would start getting very cranky. When the focus began to turn back on me, that's when all the suffering began. It was really weird. Keeping my focus on others, doing it out of love for others. There's a lot of happiness, a lot of peace, a lot of joy. Focusing all that work on me, not so much. Not so much at all. Now, that's not to say that sometimes when we're out there serving, helping other people, there is suffering involved. It's not always, happy, fun, smiley time. But I think we oftentimes lose an opportunity to experience great joy when we stop serving and serving with the Spirit and a heart of servant. Those are our favorite news stories, right? Those stories learning about great, good Samaritans out there, people doing great things out in the world. This week, my favorite news story was one I saw on the web about this couple in Missouri, this young couple, and they were in labor, having a baby, and that baby wouldn't wait till it got to the hospital, so they ended up having to park at a truck stop and have this baby at the truck stop, and the umbilical cord was wrapped around its neck, and so the young couple was screaming out, "Help! Help! Our baby's dying! Help! Help!" Everybody's in a tizzy except for this homeless stranger who just happened to be there right at that time, right next to them, was able to unwrap the cord around the baby's neck, was able to cut it at the right place, tie a knot, rub the baby's back so it could start breathing, was able to talk on the 911 call very calmly, very politely, get everything done. People reporting on this story, the witnesses kept saying, "Oh, this was a guardian angel. This was a special angel. This was this baby's secret, special guardian angel." One person working at the truck stop said, You know, with his long hair and beard, it was like looking at the face of Jesus. Our gospel reading today is an opportunity for Jesus to tell his disciples and tell us what following him is all about. It's not about focusing our life on ourselves, our faith life on ourselves, and it's not about focusing our faith life on Jesus. It's about focusing on others and serving others. A couple of Jesus' disciples come and say, Jesus, we want to sit at your right hand, at your left. We want to be in this special place of prominence because we want to feel like we're important. We want to know that you know that what we're doing is important. And Jesus says, this isn't what my work is all about, giving you a lot of accolades and a lot of honor for what you're doing. My job here is to serve. And if you want to be my disciples, the greatest of you is going to be the slave to all. Because I have come to give my life for many, to give my life to bring freedom and new life to many. And we hear that story, and perhaps we hear it for the first time, or we've heard it before, and we hear those two disciples at the beginning of the story saying they want all these awards and accolades and special treatment. And it's easy for us to say, oh, of course Jesus is going to reprimand them. That's so inappropriate. That's so off center. But then we hear what Jesus is asking. You must give your life, sacrifice your life for many as I am. And our thought is, well, the alternative, though, doesn't sound too good. Because our thoughts are hanging on that cross, suffering, death, humiliation, all that horrible stuff. And again, that's not to say that giving of our life for Jesus doesn't include suffering and lots of dramatic sacrifice sometimes. But I think we miss out a huge part of what Jesus is implying when we forget just how joyful and joy-engendering serving others can be. Now, lots of times, I know when we're serving others, it's not so joyful. We find ourselves suffering in pain of some sort. And chances are, if we really think about it, it's vestiges of our own self-awareness, self-interest, our own egoism that's still attached to our serving. So we find when we're out serving people, we're not very happy. Because maybe we don't like the people that we're serving. Or maybe we don't like the fact that there's not enough help for what we're doing. Or that we're not getting the thanks and the support and the attention and the appreciation that we deserve. Or the fact that we're bored with what we're doing. Or the fact that really we shouldn't be doing this, we should be home taking care of something that we really need to take care of for our own lives, or take care of our families, or whatever it is. And sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it's not, but that focus is on the self. And when the focus is on the self, when we're serving others, it's like that's when the chains begin to grind. And that's when we start getting angry, and we start getting selfish, and we start getting prideful, and we start doing all sorts of things that are not in the kingdom of God, inwardly or outwardly. And it happens to all of us. And the good news is we can switch those gears immediately. If we choose, let that all go and just say, I'm here to serve. Unconditionally, I'm just here to be here to help. You'll be amazed at how joy and happiness and peace, that stuff just happens because we've lost our agenda. We're serving as Jesus would have us serve. We're bringing in the kingdom of God out there and in our hearts. Because all we're doing is loving. Loving unconditionally with our hands, our feet, whatever else is needed. What a great exercise to practice. A couple weeks ago, when we were talking about how to live more joyfully, I said, well, why don't we try an exercise of just smiling, just practicing smiling. When you think about it, and smile. You might be amazed at how suddenly your spirits are lifted. Well, I invite us all to practice this little servanthood exercise as well. As much as we can remember, just to be out there to help other people, just love them, like we're on a mission trip. And there's nothing else we need to involve our minds with except helping other people. See what happens. See what difference it makes. We are now in a process this month of what we're calling Stewardship Month, where we're inviting people to be thinking of ways that they want to make pledges of commitment to caring for the ways that they make God's presence here in the world and in their hearts. We've talked about how we want to make commitments to stewarding our journey, being intentional about some of the things we do to get closer to God. And we're also talking about stewarding joy, because that's the mission of our church, to help people experience joy. What do we want to do to care for ourselves, that we can be these vehicles of joy? One of the best and most important ways we can make that commitment to grow and to be more able to be joyful, joy-bringing people is to make commitments of service. Commitments of service to one another here in this congregation. That's one of the best places we practice that spirit of servanthood and get back on track when we're finding ourselves not in a loving place of service. And then we also want to make commitments of serving out in the world, so that we can bring joy, we can bring love, and we can bring peace and help and all those good things out there to people who don't know it, who don't know God, who don't know any of this. And I think in our congregation, with our mission of joyfulness, I think it's especially exciting to be thinking about what sorts of missions might we do that are especially joy engendering. What are things that we can do that are more than just helping, which is a great thing to do, but helping to bring forth joy? One great suggestion came from Mr. Maklovani, who said, I've always wanted to learn about clowning. I don't know what to do with that, but I always want to learn about clowning. And I suddenly remembered the great story of Patch Adams. I don't know if you're familiar with this story, but he was this man who came from a very broken family, had a very broken life. He was suicidal. He checked himself into a psychiatric ward, and he found that his healing came not from bored and unhappy doctors constantly asking him about how he was doing. That didn't do anything. But what started him on his path of healing was checking in with the other patients, seeing how they were doing, and spending time to really care for them. And he had this great sense of humor. He found making them laugh brought everybody to life, brought him to life. This is what he wanted to do. He wanted to become a doctor and care for people. He went to medical school. And again, it wasn't enough just to learn the scientific protocol of what you're supposed to do to heal people. That didn't seem to be helping as much, and helping so much, nearly as much, as going out, getting to know those patients, figuring out how to make them laugh, bringing his clowning skills, and encouraging others to do the same, and encouraging patients to be helping one another and helping one another laugh. All this healing that took place because they were there to be with one another, to help one another experience joy. So, Mike and I are in conversation with the Clown School of LA. If you knew, there's a clown school, and we're going to be taking some classes on clowning, and we're going to start thinking about how can we develop a ministry that's can go to hospitals and shelters and other places and bring joy and teach those folks a little bit about clowning. And hopefully there'll be folks in this congregation that would also like to learn more about that and be part of this ministry. You've got friends and there's people out there in the community that may never come to church, but would sure like to be part of a clowning ministry that's going out to bring joy. Wouldn't that be a great way of doing evangelism? Especially here in Hollywood, where we have incredibly talented people all over the place, and we live in a city that is so self-involved. That's all about, I gotta worry about myself. That's the main thing I need to do every day, is to make sure I'm out there doing an audition, so somebody will like me, so somebody will give me that job, so I can keep my job because then somebody else wants it. What a counter message we can give, saying, you know what? Life and all your talented gifts of performing, it's not about taking care of yourself. Use those gifts to help bring joy and art and love to others. What an opportunity to save and free this community, especially. An exciting opportunity that is. So I invite you to let those seeds germinate in you and think about what you might like to do, what God might be calling you to do next. To serve your families, to serve where you work, to come here and let's think together of ways we can serve and bring joy. And I'd like to conclude my thoughts today by talking about a gentleman who just passed away this morning. I turned on my computer, and I learned that George McGovern passed away this morning. He was 90, he'd been ill for quite some time. George McGovern, as you may remember, was a candidate for president in 1972, very progressive. He was all about ending the war, and he suffered the greatest presidential defeat. It's a good story to tell, I think, in the middle of this presidential election we're having. He had the greatest defeat of any president ever, and a year later, the Watergate scandal broke, and bumper stickers started showing up. Don't blame me, I'm from Massachusetts. That was the only state that voted for George McGovern. Or don't blame me, I voted for George McGovern. It was a humiliating defeat. Humiliating, like, slap in the face for everything that George McGovern had stood for. And yet when he lost and he left the Senate, he continued working his real passion, which was hunger. And working to bring an end to hunger in this country, working to bring an end to hunger in the world. He did all sorts of things. And in fact, this morning, this is what House Democrat Whip Steny Hoyer of Maryland said. And I just thought I'd read this a little bit. George McGovern made it his life's work to end the plague of hunger across the globe and here at home. He was a pioneer of our successful food stamp program, and working across the aisle with former Senator Bob Dole, helped expand funding for free and reduced cost school lunches. As director of the Food for Peace program under President Kennedy, Senator McGovern strengthened our leadership around the world by helping feed millions with surplus American produce. While many of his ideas may have been ahead of his time, they have since helped shape our policies as a nation. I join in expressing my condolences to Senator McGovern's family and celebrating his life and contribution to the country he loved to serve. What an amazing testament to a life of effective, passionate service. And you know what else? He was the son of a Methodist preacher. So if that's not better inspiration for us today, I don't know what is. Thanks be to God.